Toyota, Subaru and Mazda have committed to making the movie which none of us really wants to watch. The internal combustion will never die. R&D three-way. Paradoxically, they have decided to pretend that this is some sort of pathway to achieving the highest possible ideal of contemporary human fantasy, that mythical, non-existent state we commonly call carbon neutrality, which is just not possible without going back to the 12th frickin' century, you geniuses. And, of course, motoring journalists everywhere continue to impress by failing to make the most obvious criticisms of the upcoming Japanese combustion three-way. I'm John Cadogan, autoexpert.com.au, Newcastle cheap but Australia only website. Card. I know that nobody gives up the job of chief political correspondent anywhere to become the motoring journalist, but the standard of reporting on the Japanese combustion three-way really is appalling. Somehow we've achieved an even lower new low. Well done. Motoring journalists tend, of course, to be carefully selected from that pool of journalists whom you would not trust with any real reporting of anything of substance. But, dude, failing to point out the obvious here is beyond just tragic. The news was, in case you missed it, Toyota, Mazda and Subaru have committed to keep making internal combustion engines smaller, more efficient, lighter, compatible with hybridization and hybridization, etc. Yay for them. And all the journalists got that right, mainly because it was handed to them on a press release, with instructions about how to publish without all that much alteration, because, you know, advertising. But why them? Why those three car companies? Dude, why not Suzuki, Nissan and Honda, for example? Why Toyota, Subaru and Mazda specifically, marching in lockstep together as one in the threesome? Any ideas? This report is sponsored by me. So if you want to take effective climate action, I would argue that the place to start here is by divorcing yourself from the nation's biggest emitter of CO2, which is clearly coal. And the way to do that is install rooftop solar. autoexpert.com.au/solar for more on that. I've got a complete, simple solution there. There's no obligation. You just fill in a form and it kind of happens around you. Perhaps you've already got those panels up on the roof, and if so, I would say add a battery, because harvesting electricity during the day is brilliant, because then you can use it at night. Compared with an EV, it's a small, relatively affordable and safe battery. Unlike an EV, which depreciates fast and costs a bomb to buy and also to insure, rooftop solar is fairly affordable and it adds value to your house. It slashes your electricity bill, as well as insulates you from future power bill price rises, which are more or less a done deal, aren't they? If you configure your system right, you'll even get power failure protection, which is going to be increasingly important into the future as grid stability management gets even worse. autoexpert.com.au/solar for more on that. And now, back upliftingly to the Japanese combustion three-way. Toyota, Subaru and Mazda are in this somewhat undignified, bad fashion combustion forever threesome because Toyota is a two-tailed dog, really, and Subaru and Mazda are its tails. Toyota actually owns 20% of Subaru and 5% of Mazda. Toyota is basically calling the shots here, saying, screw you, electrification. Subaru and Mazda subserviently just do whatever they are told. It takes about 3 seconds on Google to work all of this out, if you didn't already know. Now, alternatively, if you live somewhere like, I don't know, Huntsville, Alabama, you can just drive past the Mazda Toyota manufacturing plant that makes the Corolla Cross and the CX-50, I think. That's kind of a big hint about them being joined at the hip. Or you could just look at the BZ4X and the Solterra and spot the differences. Pro tip, there aren't any. Dude, the wheels fall off both of those vehicles equally, so yay. Toyota began bending Subaru over 19 long years ago. And today, Subaru describes their relationship as, paradoxically, one of being both rivals and partners. Go figure. Sounds kind of like me and ex-wife number 4, which is like Stockholm Syndrome, now that I think about it. So here they are, 6 bigwigs from 3 Japanese car makers, looking like an advertisement for the bean counter Yakuza. Obviously, jointly thrilled. Look at them, so happy, with the prospect of all working together so closely to achieve carbon neutrality. The one thing they're doing really well here, together with their respective spin doctors, I would argue, is shoveling horse shit. This is what embracing Bullshido looks like, that ancient Japanese art. Achieving a carbon neutral society is a challenge that must be undertaken by all of Japan's industries and society as a whole. As we continue to refine electrification technology, we will also enhance our horizontally opposed engines with an aim to use carbon neutral fuels in the future. Moving forward, the 3 companies sharing the same aspiration will continue to advance the pursuit of sustainable excellence in Japanese car manufacturing. That's Osaki-san there, the cheese of Subaru, busily, industriously shoveling horizontally opposed zero emissions Bullshido like a champion. Carbon neutral fuels, really. Let us unpack that briefly, shall we? I would argue that engines don't give a shit how the fuel was made. Car makers don't even make the fuel, do they? These are just combustion engines, like really, really efficient ones, and that should be friggin' enough to sell them. All combustion engines, even the 20-year-old ones, will run just fine on these non-existent, at least statistically, so-called carbon neutral fuels. If you make your C8H18, otherwise known as octane, or even your 2,2,4-trimethylpentane, which is that iso-octane isomer of octane, isn't it? If you make it in a lab, it burns just the same as the stuff that erupted from under the desert in Saudi Arabia or Texas. No one cares. Certainly not the engine. Carbon neutral fuels do not exist outside of glorified laboratories and pilot plants that everyone jizzes all over. They don't scale up thanks to the second law of thermodynamics inconveniently and the irreversibility of processes, which is such a biatch, dude. To make a carbon neutral fuel, you have to procure the exhaust products like the CO2 and the water, which is not that hard, but then you have to pump in a shit ton, like a metric shit ton, the big one, of mythical zero emissions energy. The unicorn of energy. More energy needs to be input than will be liberated during the subsequent combustion of the fuels, thanks to the second law, which is so inconvenient. So, unless you've got access to magical, limitless, free, carbon-neutral energy, making a zero-emissions fuel like a carbon-neutral fuel makes absolutely no sense and is completely uneconomical, both thermodynamically and monetarily. The concept is unadulterated Bullshido. It's only useful for greenwashing. In order to provide our customers with diverse options to achieve carbon neutrality, it is necessary to take on the challenge of evolving engines that are in tune, see what he did there, with the energy environment of the future. The 3 companies which share the same aspirations will refine engine technologies through friendly competition. Sato-san there, 7th Dan Bullshido expert, and also the big cheese of Toyota, singing from the frickin' hymn book. I suppose at least he never said carbon neutral fuels, did he? But the reason he's standing there, why they're all freaking standing there looking so comfortable, is to chip away at places such as the EU, which is proposing to ban the sale of every CO2 emitting car by 2035. They really don't want that. So this is a PR campaign aimed at the stupid. They want to arrive in a negotiating position where they say to Big Bad Ursula and people of her ilk, our vehicles are carbon neutral fuel compatible, baby. And then, happily, supply of that mythical fuel can be, I don't know, Shell's problem or BP's problem or Chevron's or someone else's. We will continue to offer customers exciting cars by honing internal combustion engines for the electrification era and expanding the multi-pathway possibilities for achieving carbon neutrality. Given the rotary engine's compatibility with electrification and carbon neutral fuels, sake, dude, Mazda will continue to develop the technology through co-creation and competition to ensure it can contribute broadly to society. Morrison there, Mazda's Camembert and also National Bullshido Champion 2022, if memory serves. Now, I do love a good multi-pathway possibility for achieving a mythical state as much as the next guy and doubtless also you, especially if you can ride there on a rotary-powered, magic electrified carpet burning carbon-neutral fuel. Who doesn't want that? So, Toyota, Subaru and Mazda are committed to developing combustion engines, swimming upstream against an automotive industry tide where complete and unwavering commitment to electrification appears to be the new black. Some car makers are certainly going to lose here, aren't they? Big time, I'd suggest. Toyota has already said that they don't think the vehicle fleet will ever be more than about 30% EV, and it's really hard for me to see any kind of flaw in Toyota's argument on that one. If Toyota is right, and they often are because they're the most successful car company ever, like, let's forget about the Ponzi scheme of Tesla. Toyota's successful at being a car company, right? So if Toyota's right and you're a car maker going in sort of balls deep on electrification, embracing the electric utopia promised by the politicians, you're going to ultimately lose access to about 70% of your customers. Even if Toyota's wrong and the fleet goes 50% EV, if you don't offer combustion, you're going to lose access to 50% of potential car buyers for your brand. That's generally bad commercially. So either the electric utopian car makers are right, and Toyota and its two testicles, Mazda and Subaru, are busily nailing their coffins shut by betting the farm on this legacy technology, or the electric utopians and their cult members will be shoveling humble pie until the heat death of the universe. It'll be interesting to watch either way, don't you think? However, I don't think Toyota and its two subservient nuts are wrong. I just think they should do less bullshit shoveling because we're already stocked up on that as a culture. In fact, it's impossible for me to have any respect for these clowns in respect of this announcement because they will not acknowledge the reality. It's just high-level regulator pandering, this carbon-neutral fuel bullshit, come on. And motoring journalists all just regurgitate what they say without analysis, and that is kind of pathetic. Carbon-neutral fuels can be made, certainly, but they cannot replace our current liquid fuels because they can't be made economically at scale in the volumes required. Like, you don't need that much technical training to know this. It's a hurdle that you really can't jump over, right? For humans to approach carbon neutrality generally, we have to leave civilization behind. And there are some humans on Earth currently living la vida carbon neutrality today. Just take a look at their lives, dude. You wouldn't want to change places with them. Their existence is characterised by existing in a state of abject poverty. And the easiest way to pull them out of poverty is to give them electric lights and a cylinder of propane or something to cook their dinner on. Imagine the difference that makes. It's profound. Hydrocarbons are the best thing that has ever happened to humanity. Now, I could debate this with anyone and win, like anyone, every time, like clockwork, dude. It's not that hard because the facts are on my side here. Climate change is real. It's caused by humans. It is a serious, difficult problem to solve, but hydrocarbons, any way you cut it up, they remain the best thing that has ever happened to our species. And this is a huge part of why this problem is so difficult to solve. You really have to take the blue pill to keep believing in carbon neutrality without going back to existing like it's the 12th century again. Real carbon neutrality, like you'd need to kiss all of the trappings of civilization behind: the concrete, the steel, the transportation, the advanced medical care, the roads, supermarkets, plastics, pretty much all manufactured products, the internet, mass production of food, like all agribusiness, the microelectronics revolution, overhead lighting for, nighttime, etc. It's rather the long list of serious cultural sacrifices. Certainly we can make processes more efficient and reduce the consumption of hydrocarbons. That would be a responsible approach. Less waste would be a real place to start. This is what the automotive threesome is actually about when you think about it, and I really do applaud them for that, for embracing that. Full points for that, but frankly, the positive here is eclipsed by their capacity for Bullshido, which really is export grade. And what is disgraceful is the way they wrap an otherwise credible initiative in this Bullshido to appease people in power who essentially never studied anything technical. And you know the dipshits I mean, right? Politicians and senior bureaucrats who want carbon neutrality but don't understand the thermodynamics and hence the sacrifices necessary to achieve it. Who don't understand that the concept of engines running on carbon neutral fuel is thermodynamic Bullshido. These industry clowns are just pandering to regulatory ignorance. Think Chris Bowen. I doubt he has that much of a grasp on fundamental thermodynamics, for example. Like, I might be wrong, but I doubt it. These dudes should be saying, look, full electrification is Bullshido. It's going to fall over in the medium term. We can all see it. We put our best brains on this problem, and that's where we're at. So that's why we're doing this. They should be saying you can achieve more with these shit-hot, efficient engines connected to a hybrid powertrain. You could just take the materials for one disgracefully lardy-arsed, morbidly obese EV battery, such as the battery in Polestar 4 or a Kia EV9, and you could make something like 100 hybrids instead. And that would be a better result for the climate with far fewer infrastructure challenges to solve in order to implement it. They should be saying that because that's the truth. Not this masturbatory fantasy that you'll be pulling up at the local servo and filling up on 98 RON carbon neutral premium anytime soon, because that's never going to happen, dude. EVs are clearly not the future, right? They're part of the future, sure, but they're not the whole future, despite the rhetoric. Instead of pandering to everyone, these guys should be telling the friggin' truth, and motoring reporters, frankly, should be calling out their regulator-appeasing Bullshido for the falsehood it is.